Have you ever noticed how society keeps telling you to be grateful, stay humble, and money isn't everything? While the people giving that advice are usually the ones struggling the most, meanwhile, the wealthy quietly follow a completely different rulebook. What if the real reason you're stuck isn't income, but invisible programming? You grow up thinking you're making your own financial choices, but if you look closely, it feels like the world gently nudges you toward the same path everyone else follows. Work hard, don't ask for too much, be responsible, be realistic. And somehow, despite doing everything right, your bank account keeps acting like it's allergic to growth. My name is Alex, and after years of studying how wealth is actually built, I realized something most people never notice. You're not failing financially. You're being trained, conditioned, programmed to stay exactly where you are while believing it's your fault. And the wild part? These patterns feel completely normal, almost comforting, because you've been taught them your entire life. I'm not here to tell you to skip lattes or cancel Netflix. That's surface-level advice. What I want to ask is much deeper. What if invisible programs have been running your entire financial life without you realizing it? Today we're uncovering the 7 invisible scripts society slipped into your mind long before you earned your first dollar. And one of them is probably controlling you at this very moment. Program number 1, wanting money makes you greedy. You were taught this one early since long before you ever understood what money really was. It came from family dinners, school lessons, movies, and even well-meaning adults who believed repeating the same old lines somehow made them wise. Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are selfish. Don't be too ambitious. On the surface, these sound moral. Underneath, they're mental landmines. This programming works because it attacks the first step of wealth: desire. If wanting more automatically makes you a bad person, then you'll never pursue the opportunities that could change your life. You'll shrink your goals, suppress your instincts, and mistake self-sacrifice for virtue. Society doesn't need you to become wealthy. It needs compliant workers who are grateful for whatever they get. And guilt is one of the most efficient tools ever invented. But here's the twist. People who embrace money responsibly become the ones who donate the most, support families the most, and create the most positive impact. Money doesn't make you greedy. It magnifies the person you already are. If you're generous with $10, you'll be generous with $10,000. If you're selfish with a small income, you'll be selfish with a big one. The real danger isn't wanting money. It's rejecting it so aggressively that you build a life defined by stress, scarcity, and survival. The world benefits far more from people with good hearts who also have strong finances. Wanting money isn't greedy. It's responsible. Program number 2, choose security, not opportunity. This one disguises itself as wisdom. It sounds responsible, adult, safe. Get a stable job. Don't take risks. Stick to what you know. Entire generations grew up believing the safest financial path was the traditional one. Go to school, get good grades, get hired, retire at 65. But if you look closely, this secure path is actually a well-decorated cage. Real security requires control, but the traditional path gives you none. Your employer can fire you, your industry can collapse, inflation can eat your savings, and the world can shift faster than your paycheck can adjust. Yet society praises stability so loudly that you never stop to question whether it's truly safe or just familiar. Meanwhile, wealthy people chase a different kind of security, one built on multiple income streams, marketable skills, ownership, and assets that grow even when they sleep. They diversify their opportunities instead of relying on a single source of income that depends entirely on someone else's decisions. The irony is painful. The more you cling to security, the more fragile your life becomes. The more you prioritize opportunity, the more resilient you become. Safety isn't the absence of risk, it's the presence of options. Opportunity isn't reckless, it's intelligent diversification. And choosing it doesn't make you irresponsible, it makes you aware. Program number 3, debt is normal and necessary. This programming is so common it feels like breathing. Want a car, finance it, want an education, borrow it, want a home. A 30-year mortgage is normal. You're taught to see debt as a rite of passage, a milestone of adulthood, a perfectly acceptable trade for the life you want. But normal doesn't mean wise. The financial industry makes billions convincing you that monthly payments matter more than total cost. That's why car dealerships talk about $690 a month instead of $42,000 plus interest. It's psychological engineering. If they can shrink your focus to a monthly number, they can quietly drain your wealth without resistance. Wealthy people reverse the equation entirely. They avoid paying interest on depreciating items and use debt strategically only to acquire assets that appreciate: real estate, businesses, cash flowing systems. They treat debt as a tool, not a lifestyle. The tragedy is that most people spend decades paying interest on things they no longer even own or value. Their money goes to banks instead of investments. Their future gets mortgaged to keep up with their present. Debt isn't evil, but normalized debt, unquestioned, automatic, emotion-driven debt, is financial quicksand. You don't sink all at once. You sink slowly, month by month, payment by payment, until you forget what financial freedom even feels like. Program number 4, think like a consumer, not an investor. This program runs quietly in the background of your life. From childhood, you're taught to buy, not build. Advertisements tell you to treat yourself. Retailers praise you for spending. The culture celebrates consumption like it's a sport. Holidays for shopping, rewards for purchasing, points for buying more things you don't need. The result, you see money as something to exchange, not something to multiply. Consumers ask, can I afford it? Investors ask, what does this cost my future wealth? That one shift changes everything. Consumer thinking leads you to dopamine-driven purchases. New gadgets, new clothes, new trends. It keeps companies rich and you poor. Investor thinking forces you to evaluate value, returns, opportunity cost, and long-term upside. It slows down impulse decisions and speeds up wealth. Society needs consumers, the economy depends on them. That's why the messaging is so constant, so emotional, so persuasive. But the wealthy don't play that game. They channel money into assets, stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, assets that grow, assets that build freedom. The truth is simple, every dollar you spend is a vote. You're either voting for your future or voting for someone else's. Program number 5, trade time for money. This one starts in school. You sit at a desk for hours, follow a schedule, complete assignments, and receive grades in return. Later, you follow the same pattern at work. Show up at a specific time, follow the rules, and receive a paycheck. Without realizing it, you've been conditioned into a linear income system. Your earning potential is tied directly to your hours. The problem? Linear income has a ceiling, a hard one. No matter how talented, disciplined, or committed you are, you cannot outwork a system built on hours. There are only 24 in a day. Wealthy people break this pattern by seeking leverage. They build systems, products, investments, audiences, and assets that continue producing value long after the initial effort. They separate time from money. Meanwhile, most people measure their worth by hourly wages or annual salaries, numbers that reward presence, not productivity or impact. This creates a life where time becomes your master rather than your tool. True wealth is measured not by how hard you work, but by how little your income depends on your physical presence. Working hard is honorable, but working only hard without leverage is limiting. Program number 6 is stay surrounded by people who think small. This programming doesn't come from institutions, it comes from people you know. Family, friends, coworkers. The environment that shaped you also shaped your beliefs about money. When you start dreaming bigger, thinking differently, or aiming higher, it threatens the emotional comfort of the people around you. Suddenly, you're unrealistic, obsessed, or changing. They joke about your goals. They warn you about risks. They tell you to be grateful for what you have. But it's not really about you, it's about them. Your growth makes them confront their stagnation. Humans are tribal by nature, and tribes resist change. If everyone around you spends impulsively, complains about work, avoids investing, and fears risk, you will too. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. The wealthy curate their environment intentionally. They seek communities where ambition is normal, growth is expected, and wealth conversations aren't taboo. Because the environment doesn't just influence you, it programs you. If you want to change your financial life, you often have to change your social life first. Program number 7, people like you don't become wealthy. This is the deepest program of all. The belief that wealth is for other people, different backgrounds, different education, different circumstances. It whispers that your goals are unrealistic, your dreams are too big, and your start in life defines your finish. This belief creates a silent, powerful loop. You doubt, you hesitate, you underperform, you confirm your doubt. It becomes self-fulfilling. Maybe you think you need an MBA before starting a business. Maybe you assume investing is for people who already have money. Maybe you believe successful people were born lucky. None of these are facts. They're inherited beliefs that quietly sabotage your potential. The truth is, most wealthy people didn't start wealthy, but they did something different. They refused to let their circumstances dictate their ceiling. They educated themselves. They acted before they felt ready. They failed, adjusted, and continued. Self-limiting beliefs are the invisible chains on your financial life. And the moment you doubt your ability to build wealth, every decision you make afterward will reflect that doubt. You don't rise to your goals, you rise to your beliefs. Deprogramming, how to break each pattern. Deprogramming yourself isn't about motivation or willpower. It's about quietly rewiring beliefs that were installed long before you ever made a financial decision. These patterns feel normal because you've lived with them your entire life. That's why breaking them feels uncomfortable at first, like peeling old wallpaper you didn't even realize was covering every wall in your house. The first step is language, not affirmations, not hype, just honest, productive self-talk. Replace "I can't afford that" with "How can I afford that?" Replace "I'm bad with money" with "I'm learning how money works." It sounds small, almost trivial, but language shapes identity and identity shapes decisions. Then upgrade your input. You can't think differently while consuming the same information that shaped your old beliefs. Read books by people who built wealth, not people who complain about it. Listen to the entrepreneurs who failed 5 times before succeeding once. Follow creators who teach you how to build assets, not how to justify staying broke. Next, don't overhaul your entire life overnight. That's the biggest reason people fail. They try to change everything at once: spending, investing, habits, friends, and burn out. Deprogramming isn't a sprint. It's replacing one automatic behavior with an intentional one. Question a purchase, question a subscription, question a belief. Start small, but stay consistent. Finally, build wealth consciousness. Scarcity says there's never enough. Wealth says value creates opportunity. Scarcity sees expenses. Wealth sees investments. Scarcity trades time. Wealth builds systems. Deprogramming begins with awareness. It transforms with repetition. And it sticks when your beliefs finally align with your goals. Ownership, the turning point. There's a moment in every financial transformation when the conversation stops being about them and starts being about you. Not your parents, not the economy, not your boss, not inflation, you. And for most people, this is the exact moment where things finally begin to shift. Ownership isn't about blame, it's about power. It's the quiet realization that your financial situation isn't a life sentence. It's an accumulation of decisions. Decisions that felt innocent, routine, or automatic at the time. Ownership simply means recognizing that if your choices created your current reality, new choices can create a new one. That's the turning point, because once you accept responsibility, excuses lose their grip. You stop saying, "Oh, the system is unfair," and start asking, how do I navigate the system smarter? You stop saying, "I don't earn enough," and start asking, how can I increase my value? Instead of feeling stuck, you start becoming strategic. This shift feels uncomfortable at first, because it removes the emotional safety net of victimhood. But it's also incredibly liberating. Suddenly, you're not waiting for the economy to improve or for someone to give you a raise. You're in motion, you're learning, you're taking action, you're adjusting. Ownership doesn't mean you control everything. It means you control enough. Enough to change your trajectory. Enough to build something different. Enough to stop living reactively and start living intentionally. People who take ownership don't magically become successful. They gradually become unavoidable. Social pressure, the price of evolution. Once you start changing your financial mindset, something unexpected happens. The resistance doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people closest to you. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth highlights their stagnation. And human psychology has a funny way of turning other people's progress into a personal threat. At first, it's subtle. Little jokes about how you're too focused on money now. A raised eyebrow when you skip an impulsive purchase. gentle warnings about being too ambitious. But underneath all of that is fear. Fear that if you grow too much, you'll outgrow them. Most social groups maintain balance by keeping everyone at a similar level, financially, emotionally, intellectually. When one person starts to rise, the group unconsciously pulls them back, the way a thermostat pulls a room back to its default temperature, not out of malice, out of familiarity. This is the price of evolution, the temporary discomfort of no longer fitting into the spaces you used to accept without thinking. Some people will support you, some will question you, some will try to hold you where you've always been, and a few will drift away entirely. But here's the part. Nobody tells you. The people who can't handle your growth were never meant to be part of your future, and the people who belong in your next chapter will never resent you for trying to write a better story. Wealth demands new habits, new beliefs, and sometimes new company. Why people defend the system that hurts them. One of the strangest parts of financial behavior is how fiercely people defend the very system that keeps them stuck. Challenge someone's money beliefs and you'll see it instantly. The walls go up, the excuses come out, and suddenly, you're the one who doesn't understand how the real world works. It's not because they're stubborn, it's because the programming is deep. When you've spent your entire life believing that job security is everything, that debt is normal, that investing is risky, and that wealth is for other people, those ideas become part of your identity. And the human brain is wired to protect identity, even when it harms progress. So when someone suggests a different path, start a business, build assets, invest consistently, think bigger, it doesn't feel like new information. It feels like a threat, a psychological violation, a spotlight aimed directly at the gap between where they are and where they could be. To protect themselves from that discomfort, people cling to failure stories. They'll talk about the entrepreneur who went bankrupt, the cousin who lost money in stocks, the tenant nightmare in real estate. They never talk about the millions who built wealth quietly through consistency, patience, and strategy. Defending limitations feels safer than confronting potential. Because accepting a new possibility means admitting one painful truth. You could have chosen differently all along. But once you see that, everything changes, because personal responsibility stops being a burden and starts becoming a doorway. Final insight: awareness is your escape hatch. At some point in your financial journey, you realize the biggest trap was never your income, your background, or even your circumstances. It was the invisible script you were following without question. Once you see that script clearly, you can finally step outside it, and that awareness becomes your escape hatch. Most people measure their financial progress using the wrong scoreboard. They obsess over salary instead of net worth, status symbols instead of assets, and short-term comfort instead of long-term freedom. It's like trying to win a marathon while celebrating every single step. You feel busy, but you're not actually moving forward. Awareness shifts your metrics. Suddenly, you start asking better questions. Is this an asset or a liability? Does this purchase grow my future or shrink it? Is my time being leveraged or wasted? Is this belief empowering me or limiting me? The moment you change the questions, you change the outcomes. Awareness also forces you to confront the uncomfortable truth that staying broke is often more familiar than becoming wealthy. Familiarity feels safe, even when it's destructive. But once you're aware, you can't unsee the patterns. You can't pretend debt is harmless, consumption is normal, or trading time for money forever is a winning strategy. Your life won't change overnight, but your direction will, and direction is everything. Financial freedom doesn't begin with money. It begins with awareness. And awareness, applied consistently, becomes transformation. By now, you've seen just how deeply society shapes the way you think about money. Not through dramatic lessons, but through quiet expectations that feel so normal you never think to question them. And when those expectations pile up over decades, they don't just influence your decisions, they build the walls of your financial life. But awareness changes everything. When you understand the 7 programs that kept you stuck, guilt around wanting money, false safety and stability, normalized debt, consumer thinking, trading time for money, small-minded environments, and limiting beliefs about yourself, you finally see the real enemy, the script, not the person. And that's the opportunity most people miss. Because once you can see the script, you can rewrite it. You can choose different people, different inputs, different behaviors. You can build assets instead of buying distractions. You can develop skills instead of relying on luck. You can move with intention instead of habit. Your financial life doesn't improve because someone gives you permission. It improves the moment you stop following the old programming and start choosing the future you actually want. The escape hatch has been open the whole time. Now you know where it is.